Does formula mystery help keep Coke afloat? The world's ubiquitous brown fizzy drink is staying afloat as the soda market shrinks, and many point to a marketing strategy around a so-called secret recipe as key to its resilience in a struggling industry. The Coca-Cola Company, which published its full-year result Tuesday, recorded a 5% drop in net income to $8.6 billion last year, down from $9 billion in 2012, as it faced ongoing global macroeconomic challenges, according to its chief executive, Muhtar Kent. Volume grew 2% for the year, which it said had below our expectations and long-term growth target, with sparkling beverages recording a slight increase of 1%, led by Coca-Cola. Globally, soda drink sales have been shrinking as consumers turn to water, fruit drinks, and healthier alternatives. The trend has hit Coke and other market players such as PepsiCo and Dr. Pepper. And while its primary competitor, PepsiCo, depends on its snack business to buoy the declining soda sales, Coke announced further investment into its marketing. In a tough market, one strategy that brand experts credit Coke's relative strength with is the mystery around the much-hyped secret recipe. The very idea of a mystery attracts attention and is often seen as an element of quality, says social psychologist and marketing expert Ben Wallier, lecturer at London School of Economics and ESCP Euro Business School. A typical consumer would think that it must be a valuable product if they are doing all these things to protect the recipe. Coca-Cola's secret recipe story, on which it has centered advertising campaigns and built into its corporate museum, reaches back nearly a century. According to the multinational's website, the original recipe was one only written down in 1919, more than half a century after reported morphine addict and pharmacist John Pemberton invented the drink in 1866. Until then, it was passed down by word of mouth. The formula was finally committed to paper when a group of investors, led by Ernest Woodruff, took out a loan to purchase the company in 1919. As collateral, he provided a written record of the Coca-Cola secret formula, Coke said in a statement on its site. Since the 1920s, the document sat locked in a bank in Atlanta until Coca-Cola decided to emphasize the secrets in its marketing strategy. 86 years later, Coca-Cola moved the recipe into a purpose-built vault within the world of Coca-Cola, the company's museum in Atlanta. The ambience is made complete by red lighting and fake smoke. Coca-Cola has always claimed only 2 senior executives know their formula at any given time. Although they have never revealed names or positions, according to an advertising campaign based on the recipe, they can't travel on the same plan. The vault, like one straight from a film, has a palm scanner, a numerical code pad, and massive steel door. Inside its wall, there's another safe box with more security features, and inside that a metal case containing what its owner called the most guarded trade secret in the world, a piece of paper with, according to Coca-Cola, a recipe inside. But Mark Pendergrass, author of For God, Country, and Coca-Cola, is skeptical. They kept the formula secret partly in order to increase sales with a sense of special mystery and to prevent competition, but also to keep people from knowing how cheap the ingredients were and how large the profits, he says. The company has never patented the formula, saying to do so would require its disclosure. and once the patent is expired, anyone will be able to use the recipe to produce a generic version of the world-famous drink. The secrecy creates a natural curiosity about the product itself. Consumers are more likely to try to find out the recipe, Lawyer says. Adding it creates a legend around Coca-Cola's flagship drink. Scores of recipes have emerged through the decades. Their authors usually claim to have cracked the original recipe by getting hold of antique documents. So far, Coke has rejected all of them as fantasy, saying there is only one real thing. Mark Pendergast's book includes two versions of the original formula. One is the facsimile in the handwriting of Frank Robinson, the unsung hero of Coca-Cola, who named the drink, wrote the famous grape logo, manufactured the drink in its early days, and advertised it, he says. Does he think the recipe is genuine? Yes, I think both of the Coca-Cola formulas in my book are the real thing, versions of the original formula of Coca-Cola, he says. In the end, the exact formula isn't really the issue, he says. Pendergast reiterates a tale told in his book, in which he speaks to a Coca-Cola spokesperson who points out that even its competitors got hold of the formula, they wouldn't be able to compete. Why would anyone go out of their way to buy Yum Yum, which is really just like Coca-Cola but costs more, when they can buy a real thing anywhere in the world, he was told. Tensions high in Ukraine after at least 21 died in fiery clashes. Downtown Kyiv was aglow in fire early Wednesday, as demonstrators, undeterred by a bloody day on the streets, staked their claim to the heart of the Ukraine capital and, they hope, the heart of the country itself. Such flames have been a constant for 3 months, acting as fiery barricades all around Kyiv's Maidan, or Independence Square, for protesters. Yet the flames grew more ominous on Tuesday, as at least 21 people died in fresh clashes between government forces and activists. What began with protests over President Viktor Yanukovych's backpedaling from a trade pact with the European Union, a move that the opposition maligned, accusing Yanukovych of trying to cozy up to Russia rather than the West, has spawned into something much larger. In addition to new elections, the opposition is calling for constitutional reforms to transfer more power from the presidency to the parliament. Yanukovych and his allies have responded with some concessions, even offering places in government to opposition leaders. But on again, off again, talks have gone nowhere, with the opposition refusing to budge politically and from its positions in the center of Kyiv. None of that changed after a face-to-face meeting overnight between Yanukovych and opposition leader Vitaly Klitschko. Speaking to reporters afterward, Klitschko said there effectively was no discussion. According to his Ukrainian Democratic Alliance for Reform's party, the president demanded protesters stop the standoff and put down their weapons, an accusation that Klitschko claimed is unfounded. I think the authorities should immediately pull back the police and stop the blood, because people are dying, Klitschko said. I told Yanukovych this: how can we negotiate when there is blood being spilled? Unfortunately, he does not understand it. What's behind Ukraine's political crisis? Deadliest day of political unrest. Tuesday violence followed what seemed like a rare breakthrough. Protesters pulled back Sunday from Kyiv City Hall and blocked streets in the city center after the government said it dropped charges against those arrested in the political unrest. And everything fell apart Tuesday. The Speaker of Parliament's refusal to allow amendments that would limit the president's powers and restore the constitution to what it was in 2004 angered many in the opposition. The government's prosecutor general, meanwhile, accused the opposition of breaking the truce and therefore setting the stage for the crackdown. For the sake of pursuing their own political interests, they neglected all previously reached agreements and put lives and the peace of millions of Kiev residents under threat, said Viktor Poshonka, Ukraine's prosecutor general. Whoever was to blame, there was no dispute. Tuesday was the deadliest day by far in the political unrest. Riot police used water cannons, stun grenades, and other means to force their way through protesters, with video showing some of them toting shields and swinging sticks as they barreled through. Some demonstrators fought back, swinging what looked like baseball bats or using other means. Protesters also set fire to the headquarters of the ruling party of Regions. Authorities accused them of firing guns at security forces. A CNN employee at the scene saw demonstrators carrying pellet guns, though not with live ammunition. One video showed an armored personnel carrier charging toward demonstrators' barricades, only to be inundated by a flurry of what appeared to be Molotov cocktails. The vehicle then burst into flames. All the moving parts, different tactics, and raw emotions contributed to a violent, chaotic melee in the center of Ukraine's capital. Officials warned people to stay indoors and shuttered metro stations to help control the situation. The situation hardly calmed as night descended. Black smoke and bright flames from burning tires continued to rage around Independence Square, just a few blocks from Parliament. Small explosions regularly erupted all night, the product of protesters' fireworks and perhaps the stun grenades that police have been using to clear the crowds. Demonstrators also worked through the night to build up their barricades, by forming human chains to pass bricks, rocks, and wood out their front lines in anticipation of another police offensive. Ukrainian security forces did indeed move forward, despite a barrage of rocks, before halting their advance for now at least. Kyiv was the center of the action, just like it has been all winter, with 9 police officers, 11 protesters, and an employee from the ruling party's headquarters among those killed, according to officials. But it wasn't just the capital. Police confirmed the unrest has spread to western Ukraine, with protesters attacking police and local government officers in a number of regions. Blame game calls for restraint. Shonka, Ukraine's prosecutor general, blamed protesters for the violence that he said that, in addition to those killed, injured at least 100 others. The organizers of a rally Tuesday that descended into violence will be held accountable. For every single person injured, every car burned, and every window broken, he said. Today we were able to see that only the government is interested in peaceful resolution of the situation, Shonka said. Opposition leaders should take the responsibility of everything happening in the street of Kyiv today. Opposition leaders painted their supporters as the victims, not the aggressors. Klitschko, a former world-class boxer turned politician, accused police of cruelly shooting at people in central Kyiv. And Arseny Yatsenyuk, an opposition leader from a party other than Klitschko's, made a public appeal to Yanukovych. Do not let Ukraine become a country covered with blood. Pull back the police and announce a ceasefire. Then we will negotiate. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden himself passed Yanukovych in a phone call, with the White House saying the government bears special responsibility to de-escalate the situation. Secretary of State John Kerry later backed up the Vice President's words. He called for the Ukraine government to halt violence immediately. and reopen dialogue with the opposition. On the flip side, Russian state-run RIA Novosti story on the latest Kyiv unrest noted Moscow's president's support for Yanukovsky and its accusation. Read earlier this week from Foreign Ministry spokesman Alexander Lukashevich that Washington is trying to tell the authorities of a sovereign state what they should do next and how they should do it. Such international back and forth is especially significant in the Ukraine, given not only its geographic and political position betwixt Europe and Russia and the origins of the latest unrest. It began in November with Yanukovsky's decision to scuttle a European Union trade pact that the opposition hoped would bring the Ukraine closer to the West and improve its economy in the process. The next month, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia would buy $15 billion in Ukrainian debt and slash the price Kyiv pays for its gas. As the months rolled on, the conflict expanded beyond a long-simmering discord over whether Ukraine should align more with the West or with Russia. The opposition has pressed to change how the Eastern European nation's government operates, namely through constitutional and other reforms that would, among other things, shift powers away from its president and toward parliament. Holy water washes away sins at Ethiopia's Tinket Festival. France has Lourdes, India has against. Ethiopia, meanwhile, has Gondar. Situated about 450 miles north of Addis Ababa, encapsulated by hills and tall trees, and dotted with 17th century relics from the city's glory days, when it was the country's capital. Gondar today can seem somewhat remote during the religious festival of Tinket. However, the city is inundated with the pilgrims who come to reenact the baptism of Jesus in the River Jordan and take a dip in the holy waters at the historical Phasalite bath. Nearly two-thirds of Ethiopia's 94 million population is Christian, and the majority of those belong to the Orthodox Church. For them, Tinket, celebrating the Epiphany, is among the most important occasions of the year. It is a two-day affair that begins with a procession of tablets, holy replicas of the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred text described in the book of Exodus as carrying the stone tablets on which the Ten Commandments were written. The tablets are wrapped in cloth and placed on the heads of Ethiopian Orthodox Christian priests, who parade the streets en route to the bath. The priests, clad in ceremonial robes, are escorted by drum and by the clapping and singing of worshippers, who hold an overnight vigil until dawn. There are services the following morning which culminate in the priest's blessing in the waters of the historic bath, while onlookers crowd every nook surrounding the bath, some getting a pristine view from nearby trees. When the priests are done, the mood turns jubilant, and the spectators rush to jump into the pool. The water is blessed in the name of the Holy Trinity, in the name of God. The water is now sacred, and the sick shall be cured, explains Israel Addis, the head priest at the Velko Medhenlom Church. That is why the young people who jump in first get excited. It is a spiritual love, he adds. The plunge is so swift that some participants get battered in the process, though most are unperturbed by a few scratches. I jumped from high above, boasted one man who dived into the waters from one of the nearby trees. I was apprehensive, he adds. The branches could give way. You could fall on the rock edge of the pool, and there was a possibility I could have lost my life. But at this moment, I'm doing what I figured now, and that possibility of death doesn't scare me. The Tin Can Festival dates back to the 16th century, but it was marked only in churches until the baptismal ceremonies were introduced, explains Bartolome Tertula, a historian at the University of Gondar. The baptisms, usually held on January 19th, are celebrated differently in other parts of the country. There are three options of tin can, said Tertula: to be immersed, to collect water from 3 pipes and pour it on people, or to collect water and sprinkle it. It depends on the availability of water. In Gondar, the first is implemented because the existence of this very important building, he adds, referring to a stone bath and UNESCO World Heritage Site built in 1632 for King Faisal. As the afternoon winds down, people begin to leave the pool and head back to the streets, but the festivities aren't quite over. Each Sabbath is now paraded back to its respective church with crowds of onlookers eager to get one last look at him. Back at the churches is a different, quieter scene. Congregants fill the church grounds to listen in on a final service, and after a closing prayer, it's time to send the Sabbath back inside the church to its resting place. The locals will eventually return to their homes for a special feast, but in the meanwhile, the celebrations on the streets of Gondar continue, a chance of Orthodox Christians to celebrate and come together for one of the most sacred and festive days of the year. The Philippines' best beaches and islands. The Philippines has launched a global campaign to thank the world for its outpouring of help following last year's devastating typhoon that killed more than 8,000 people. As part of the initiative, a series of electronic billboards were lit up with thank you signs in some of the world's most famous locations, including New York's Times Square, Tokyo's Shibuya Crossing, London's Piccadilly Circus, and Galeries Lafayette in Paris. Filipinos are also sending out messages of thanks on Twitter with the hashtag. The campaign, kicked off by the Philippines Department of Tourism, launched on February 8, exactly 3 months after Super Typhoon Haiyan hit. Given how gracious the nation is being, it's a fine time to revisit one of the Philippines' best assets, its 7,000 islands, aged by white sand buffering turquoise waters filled with some of the world's most diverse marine life, and most of them are relatively unexplored. Of course, not everyone will agree on which one is the best, but this is a good starting point. Disagree with our picks? Share your favorite Filipino island or beach in the comments box below. 1. El Nido, Palawan. If Palawan is indeed the last frontier of the Philippines, as it's been dubbed, the coastal town of El Nido is a gateway to wild adventure. Sure, it's got powder-fine beaches and clear waters, but the views are what really sell the place. Off the coast of El Nido are majestic karst, limestone formations, empty lagoons, marble cliffs, prehistoric caves, and waterfalls. All are easily explored. What to do? El Nido is a popular base for divers. Surrounding waters contain more than 50 species of coral, and attract whales, whale sharks, sea cows, manta rays, dolphins, and endangered turtles. Boracay, Aklan. White Beach is the place most frequently associated with Boracay and the most popular holiday destination in the Philippines. Its 4-kilometer stretch welcomes everyone from beach bums to adventures. At night, the beach comes alive with candlelit sand castles, cozy restaurants, and bars that stay open till dawn. Away from White Beach are calmer resorts. There is a less boisterous side of Boracay, and it still offers secluded strips of sand, coves, caves, and cliffs. What to do? During the early months of the year, Boracay attracts hundreds of kiteboarders and windsurfers who compete in the National Funboard Cup. The rough waves and strong winds make Boracay an ideal destination for water sport fanatics. 3. Palau Island, Cagayan Valley. This isolated island is a natural secret only the brave and persevering bother to visit. Glorious white sand, surrounded by volcanic rocks on one side, kiss blue-green waters on the other. Snorkeling and diving brings you face to face with colored gardens and rich marine reserve. Palau is all about raw beauty, but it takes some work to get there. Treks should be blessed with clear blue skies, patient companions, and trusted local guides. Getting to the island's most prized stretch of beach requires billowing thorny grass, muddy ground, and mangrove forest. What to do? With no resorts or hotels, Palau has only one real option: camping under the stars. Otherwise, visitors are allowed to explore homestay options. Panglao, Fort Panglao, Bohol. One sleepy island, Panglao is being browsed by travelers in search of gorgeous beaches. It's a refuge for those who appreciate a diverse menu of aquatic attractions. Options include dolphin watching, whale spotting, diving with barracudas, jackfish, sea snakes, and brilliant coral formations. Nature charms. In addition to its beaches, the island of Bohol is famous for its chocolate hills and unusual rolling terrain of more than 1,000 dome-shaped hills. The hills are named for their brown color during dry season, when grass dries up. The world's smallest primate, the endangered Philippine lizard, also inhabits the island. Random fact: years ago, a number of foreigners came to Panglao on holiday and never bothered to leave. Locals picked up their language to better converse with the tourists. In addition to English, in Panglao, you have a good chance of meeting a local with a Hindi cross of German, Swiss, or Japanese. Five. Bantayan Island, Cebu. Bantayan has remained relatively untouched by modern life, save for a smattering of foreigners who have taken up residence, sucked in by the island's white sand, aqua-colored waters, and red gold sunsets. Weird, cold, and cheap townsfolk are hospitable, and the dreary troubles of the outside world are easily forgotten. Holy crowds. If you're after peace and quiet, don't plan a stay during the Holy Week before Easter. The island is crowded with Filipino travelers during this period. With rooms and services booked months in advance. What to do? Relax, action-packed, and there are no five-star hotels, no malls, no fashion for shopping centers. 6. Caramon Carnivore. Named after a local sea turtle, Caramon is as scenic as it is secluded. Stretches of white and run between huge boulders and rock formations. Scuba divers, island hoppers, and beach bums all coverage here. Complementing the beaches are caves, waterfalls, freshwater pools, underground streams, and lagoons. 7. Samuel Davao, a burgeoning tourist destination. Samoa is on a mission to get the word out on its 118-kilometer coastline of white sandy beaches. You know the highlights: pristine water, lush greens, rock formations, mangrove, and coconut palms. Numerous resorts provide a range of choices for visitors, from luxury resorts to backpacker options. The Vanishing Island. The curious moniker is the nickname of Shipping Shoal, a tiny island that literally disappears from sight during high tide. The only thing visible at higher water is a single elevated cottage poking out of the sea. Siargao Islands, Siargao del Norte. Known as the top surfing island in the Philippines, Siargao is often overlooked as a beachcomber's paradise. There are breaks for beginner surfers, moderate ones, and over pros looking for 3-meter high waves. For those with zero surf skills and no desire to acquire any, there are also pristine beaches with milder waves perfect for sunning and swimming. 9. Great Santa Cruz Island, Zamboanga. On Great Santa Cruz Island, pulverized red coral washed up from the sea floor mixes with white sand to produce a pink-hued beach. It's a different version of perfection. The powdery beach competes with the blue and green shades of the sea. Some parts of the beach are lovely in their undeveloped states. There are signs of civilization, souvenirs, nipa nuts, and restaurants. Beach visits are limited to day trips, so you have to squeeze everything into a few hours. Swim, sunbath, snorkel, dive, even fish for your lunch. Just don't mistake serenity for safety. There is a deep drop in the sea just meters from shore. 10. Pangutput, Ilocos North. Along the northern tip of the island of Luzon sits the coastal town of Paguput. It's a quiet, sleepy, and rural community with little overt commercialism. Perhaps because it takes time and effort to reach Paguput, the wide and inviting beaches are usually empty, making them ideal for those who enjoy mixing solitude with sun, sand, and surf. A row of windmills down the coast from Paguput in the town of Bangui makes for a picturesque, if not unusual, backdrop for a Filipino beach. Thailand in crisis, what's happening underground and why? As the political situation in Thailand worsens with deaths on Bangkok streets this week, CNN takes a look at the root causes of the protests and what the latest developments might mean for the country's political future. Who is protesting and why? Unlike the 2010 protests, which reassured supporters of ousted Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra turned out in reverse. This time, Iran is opponents of his younger sister Ingdak Shinawatra's government who are protesting in the capital. As with previous protests, the country is largely divided between a younger, educated urban middle class and a conservative class of poor rural voters, largely from the north of the country. It is the former group who have taken to the streets and are currently battling the police after months of deepening political division. The protesters, led by Suthep Thaugsuban, a deputy prime minister in the previous Abist Vajang-led government, rejected Ingdak's poll in early February and are calling for the creation of an unelected People's Council headed by the premier appointed by Thailand's king. What triggered the current crisis? Ingdak's prime ministership was largely stable until the party attempted to pass a controversial amnesty bill in November. The bill would have nullified former Prime Minister Thaksin's corruption convictions and would have allowed him to return to the country. The policeman turned tycoon has been living in exile in a number of different locations, most recently Dubai, since he was removed in a bloodless coup in 2006. He briefly returned to Thailand in 2008. Later that year, he was convicted by a Thai court of corruption and sentenced in absentia to 2 years in prison over a controversial land deal. Courts have also frozen billions of dollars of his assets, but he is believed to still have a great deal of money held elsewhere. What is Thaksin's role in the current crisis? While it technically plays no part in the current political situation, the deeply divisive Thaksin is never far from the heart of Thai politics, communicating with supporters via social media and video messages. With his younger sister in power since 2011, his influence remains strong. Critics say Ingdak is Thaksin's proxy, but she insists she has also always been independent. The current protests were sparked by attempts by her government to enact the amnesty law that opponents said was designed to protect him and others, facilitating his return to the country and ultimately to an active role in Thai politics. Why are Thai protests in the news so often? The country has had a restive history since the dissolution of its absolute monarchy in 1932. There have been a dozen military coups dated over the years, most notably in 1947 and again in the 1970s, which led to the creation of the new constitution. The most recent military coup was in 2006, which led to the ouster of Thein Sein. Civilian rule was restored with the Thein Sein-linked civilian government in charge of protests in 2008, including the blockades of the capital's airports, eventually led to the creation of a coalition government. 2009 to 10 saw pro-Thein Sein supporters known as the Red Groups take to the streets and demand fresh elections, eventually leading to Yingluck's election, which brings us to the current situation. What impact did the February 2 election have? Under pressure, Yingluck dissolved parliament and called for new elections at the beginning of February. These were disrupted by protesters, particularly in the capital and in the south of the country. Ahead of the elections, the leaders of the protesters urged his supporters to boycott the poll and recently petitioned the Constitutional Court to annul the election. They were not successfully, and while the results are still in doubt, the country is being ruled by an interim government headed by Yingluck, but one that lacks absolute authority. What caused the latest flare-up? After a period of relative calm and a feeling that appetite for the protests was dying down, trouble has flared up again this week as police in the capital try to reclaim official government sites occupied by protesters. Reacting to the attempted eviction, around 6,000 demonstrators were estimated to be on the streets of the city Tuesday. An outbreak of violence that day saw 5 people, including at least 2 protesters and a police officer, killed in central Bangkok, following police action in which tear gas was fired in an attempt to disperse crowds of demonstrators in streets. People among the protesters began firing guns at police, who responded with bombs, rubber bullets, and live fire. 15,000 police are said to have been mobilized in the latest operations. 73 people, both police officers and opposition supporters, have been wounded in recent clashes. What's the story with the rice pledging scheme? The political crisis took on a new twist when a subsidy program that benefited rice farmers, part of Yingluck's base, was decried as corrupt by opposition leaders. The scheme was the centerpiece of Yingluck's election platform and has been based with payment problems. Yingluck criticized her opponents for politicizing the issue, but this week the country's National Anti-Corruption Commission announced their design to charge her with dereliction of duty, which could have serious implications for her retention of the premiership. She expected to answer the charge on February 27th, according to the Bangkok Post. Is Thailand safe? In the run-up to the election, several countries issued travel advertisements for tourists, and in the wake of this week's fatalities, it's like that these precautions will be used for more frequently. Reports of office closures in Bangkok on Tuesday and Wednesday have been received by CNN as the situation on the grid escalates.